Hey guys, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mrhappy Mondays, or Mondays with Mrhappy, as I like to call it. I like the with. But anyway, this is just my weekly Q&A show where I take a look at my YouTube comments from last week's video and the weeks before that, and I just answer a few questions over the course of 15 or 20 minutes. Now, I do want to do a quick announcement before I go on to the questions. I am going to be at the Fan Festival in Las Vegas this weekend, which means I will be gone from Friday through Monday. That specifically means that next Monday I won't have a weekly Q&A show, but I should have plenty of footage from the Fan Festival, assuming they allow actual recorded footage. And I should have plenty of information about the new jobs, about the new job Ninja. I'm hoping we'll get hands-on of Ninja at the Fan Festival, but yet there's no guarantee of that. Hopefully I'll have my experiences, what it was like, what I'd like to see improve next time, you know, all that good stuff about the Fan Festival. So, won't be a Monday with Mrhappy next week, since I won't be back till like 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But you can expect a bunch of videos next week about the Fan Festival itself, patch 2.4, and everything coming on. I'm going to have more announcements in the coming weeks, but that's just the one announcement I wanted to get out in this video. Now, with that out of the way, let's go through some of the questions from last week. So the first question is actually one that I can answer with just 2 words. Mrhappy, I just started playing A Realm Reborn again, and I have fell so far behind with the farming grinding, it's insane. How or where should I start to catch up? Item level 82 Paladin. Well, I could sit here and give you the non-2-word answer, you could farm mythology tomestones to get full I-90, you can do first coil to fill out some of the pieces you may want, use your soldiery to get an upgraded weapon, go to Circus Tower, get a Sand of Time and an unidentified elegant tomestone. You can work towards doing the main story missions and getting some of the rings or the accessories or I could just tell you to do the hunt. Just do the hunt. It'll get you your I-90 stuff quickly enough, even just doing the daily and weekly ones. And if you decide to do the A and S rank hunts, it can get you your item level 110 stuff, your sands and oils of time, at a pretty alarming rate, while also giving you mythology. Now, if you're more specifically asking about the relic weapon, for Atmas, I recommend making a YouTube playlist of music or videos that you can watch while you're doing it. For Animus, I highly recommend the same thing. For Novus, I recommend The Hunt. And for Nexus, get a party finder group, farm lights, and just go ham. But since you're only I-82, I'd imagine you're worried about other things at the time, so The Hunt. Now, this is a question that I've thought about, and there's another question here that I'm going to answer later that's also in regards to the Crystal Tower. So it's, what do you think of having CT, either of the instances, as extreme content, since 24-man pre-made is viable now with all the mechanics that they nerfed before release? I think it's a cool idea. I've never been a fan of raids that have, I've never been a fan of 25-man raids, or in this case 24-man raids, only because it's almost always the exact same fight as with less people, except it's just more there. It's not creatively challenging. You're literally just fighting the fact that there are now, instead of 7 other people that can mess up the fight for you, there are now 23 other people who can mess up the fight for you. And you know what? I've raided enough on WoW to see that that is very common outside. Even within the top guilds in the game, it was very common to just have those people who consistently would wipe the fight despite other people having a grasp on how to do things. So conceptually, I think it's cool. It would add some epicness to the Crystal Tower, and it would also make more use of the Alliance system, which doesn't have much use in the game outside of the Crystal Tower. In fact, it has no use outside of the Crystal Tower. So, but ultimately, I don't know how it would end up playing out. I mean, it's hard enough for some people finding 7 other people to do coil with. Imagine finding 23 other people. Ugh, that would be disastrous. This is a question that I think I can answer. I'm not going to read because there's 5 questions thrown in all of this, so I'm going to try and just answer them all with one statement. When do you think solo dungeons could be coming out, if they do come out? Expansion. Do you think they can maybe have dungeons with our chocobos? Also, do you think that the solo dungeons would be entirely new dungeons or more based off current dungeons we have? And lastly, if we got these dungeons, what do you think they will drop for loot? Wow, 5 questions. I just guessed that before reading it. Solo dungeons, we have no idea. Bottom line. You think maybe we could do it with our chocobos? No idea. Also, you think solo dungeons will be entirely new dungeons or more based off the current dungeons we have? Ultimately, my answer to all of this is what I think what's going to eventually happen is they're going to remove the 4-man requirement for doing some of the older dungeons, and you could just go in solo. I don't know if they're actually going to do up-to-date solo dungeons, because it has to be soloable for every job in the game. The rewards wouldn't be good even if they did exist. I mean, they'd probably be vanity rewards for the honest truth. Same with the chocobos. The chocobos, I think they could do some more interesting things with, but the chocobo AI is very, very dumb. So even if you could bring them in, again, I just feel like it would just be, you know, when the expansion comes out, opening up all the old dungeons so that you can go in solo. But even then, I don't know. It ultimately doesn't seem like it served much of a purpose to me outside of personal advancement. It's not like you'd be able to gear yourself for a raid off of a solo dungeon. That would not happen. So I can't imagine the rewards being super, super useful. Even back in Final Fantasy XI, a lot of the solo stuff, like the Moblin mazes, I remember people being like, this is such a waste of time. Why am I doing this? There's so much solo content in 11 that people would never bother doing because it had no real value. People would just do it because they were bored. And I guess that's what this could ultimately achieve as well. Just solo dungeon stuff to do while you're bored. But it has to be soloable by every job. So how, you know, fun can it really, really be? There's a lot of things that go into it, but I just think it'll be the old dungeons opening up to be soloable. Why'd I say it like that? Soloable. There you go. Now, this is a good question that I've actually been thinking about for not too long, but quite some time now. Hey, Mr. Happy, I'm thinking about the future expansion new level cap. They will create new main quests according to level progression. What do you think about new players? We need to do a lot of filler content on the main storyline. Each patch 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. Will they have to do all that patch filler content in advance to advance on the main storyline? This in fact will be painful for them. Think about all the main story quests together. I don't think they'll have to. I think at all the content from 2.1 to 2.5 will be skippable in favor of new main story missions. There's also the possibility, you know what, yeah, I think that they'll just make it all skippable and just mean you have to get to the ultimate conclusion of the original patch. And then it'll sort of be like, well, I know you have your mission going on here, but there's also stuff going on over here. That's how Final Fantasy XI always did it, and it actually worked very well. No matter how far you were progressed, as long as however far you progressed made enough sense for you to go over to Ishgard or wherever the hell you're going now for 14, it was okay. Now, having said that, they are kind of using 2.1 to 2.5 to set up the expansion, but I don't think they'll make it all, you know, required. You know, Final Fantasy XIV is very good at easing the barriers of entry, and that's definitely a barrier for entry in an expansion pack that players coming in the expansion pack would absolutely hate. And it would be quite a long time to get some of that stuff done. So I think they'll just make it so you need to be 2.0 story, and then you'll be good to go. I don't think you'll need to do anything else other than that. And here's another good one. Hey, Happy, you've answered this question before about white mages. I want to know what's the difference between a good warrior and a great warrior. A good warrior just does his job. You know, he tanks the enemies and he knows to pop his cooldowns from time to time. You know, a great warrior kind of goes the extra mile to do the right amount of damage. I mean, there's not really so much that a good warrior and a great warrior can do differently. It's just about understanding your abilities a lot better. You know, being able to pop home gang in an oh shit moment and not just popping it and then the 6 seconds going past and you dying because it was poorly timed. Having good raid awareness. I mean, a good warrior and a great warrior. A good warrior does the bare minimum to survive. A great warrior knows exactly what he has to do to survive everything, spaces out his cooldowns, uses his inner beasts at the right time, makes use of his Unchained and his Berserks, does things like combines abilities to make them more effective, like Vengeance and Bloodbath is one example, you know, using the Vengeance for the damage reduction as well as for the counterattack for Bloodbath, which even adds more mitigation onto it. You know, things like combining Berserk and Second Wind, things like that. You know, just, it's a lot of tiny things that add together. That's really all it is. I feel like I'm going to answer this question, and I feel like this has already happened before. Mr. Happy, would it be weird if someone paid to transfer their character to the same server you're on just for the sole purpose of being on that server? I feel like that's happened. I know I have friends, you know, who I've met through my stream who have decided to come over to my server because they want to be able to play with me and hang out with me occasionally. But they've also made their own agendas and, you know, gotten their own statics on the server and everything, and they've really made it their home. So even though they came there because their server wasn't panning out and they came here because it's the server that I'm on and it's pretty good, but they made sure that it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to play with Mr. Happy all the time. I don't think that's ever happened, and I don't think anyone ever would. I'd make it pretty clear that's like, you know, it's not like if you come here, I can play with you all the time or anytime that you want to. You know, I have, you know, my own agendas, my own things to do, like my Nexus grind or my coil statics. Like, I can't do second coil with people until the next patch, things like that. I think that it's probably happened to some degree, but never just for the sole purpose of me being there. It's usually because they hear from me or other people that the server is good, you know, you can get a static, party finder groups are good, and then they come over. They just ask me personally how the server is. I don't think anyone would ever come to the server just because I'm there. Haps, with the expansion, what is your gut feeling for what the level increase will be? 60. 60 seems like a solid place. 55 is a possibility, just so we don't go up too many levels, so our character strength doesn't increase too much. Because you got to remember that we're probably going to be getting allocation points. If that's still a thing in the expansion, they're going to probably still give us those 3 allocation points, or the 1 allocation point every few levels, I should say. Yeah, 5 levels would be kind of weird, going just up to like 35 allocation points. 60 would be even weirder, going up to 40, but they might just give us one every other level and still make it 35. I think it won't be as big of an increase as 75 like you're asking here. And I don't even think we'll get 5 new abilities for every job. I'm guessing maybe 2 or 3 abilities. 5 new abilities would be pretty crazy, considering that the base class itself will probably also be getting some abilities on those levels and some new passive traits. So, yeah. 55 or 60, I'm leaning towards 60. That's just my guess, though. And here's a question. Here's the question that I said earlier regarding CT. Hey, Mr. Happy, I heard that Square Enix was talking about making an 8-man version of CT. Do you think they will go through that? What's your opinion on it in general? They never said 8-man. They just said reducing the number of players required to beat it. And I think there's a very important difference between that. You have to remember that there are parts of the Labyrinth of the Ancients that, and remember, they're only talking about like the old, like Labyrinth of the Ancients, not Circus Tower. Circus Tower may eventually get this changed, but it still needs to be doable by 3 groups. Specifically, Labyrinth of the Ancients, it needs to be able to be done by 3 groups, specifically because of Atomos, and the mechanics of the triple gargoyles, and there's just things there that make it require 3 parties. You know, there are things in both of them that make them require 3 parties. So I think it's more or less likely, instead of 3 full parties, 24 people, it'd be 3 light parties of 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS. So they'd have to definitely still do some changes because of the way that Labyrinth of the Ancients is kind of designed to have 2 tanks. But I think that would definitely be the doable possibility of 3 light parties, 12 people, instead of 3 full parties, 24 people. And then eventually Circus Tower and eventually even the World of Darkness may eventually see those changes as well. This is a question that I'm going to inadvertently answer a lot of other people's questions, or just state my opinions about something just in order to make my point for this question. So, question, I'm currently going through the process of getting Sands of Time for my soldiery gear. As a Dragoon, I have the 110 gauntlets and boots equipped, along with the 110 jewelry, but the rest of my gear is from Circus Tower. Doing the research, it looks like I will be losing a significant amount of determination and critical hit rate by switching over to full 110 gear because of this. Would it just be better to wait until the next set of Tombstone gear comes out in 2.4, or should I always aim to improve my item level regardless of secondary stats? Now, that's actually a pretty tough question. One option definitely is to wait until the next set of Tombstone gear. I wouldn't blame you for doing that. Sorry, my throat's getting a little clogged up. But I would like to say, a lot of people overvalue secondary stats. Like, when you look at a best in slot list versus like a slightly off best in slot list, the difference is so minimal, it's pointless to even argue about it. It's pointless to argue, I think this piece is best in slot, or I think this piece is best in slot. Just one piece. Like, if you were looking at a whole set and it was reversed, I could understand. But secondary stats have such a small effect on your overall efficiency on your job. I mean, like, people say, oh, bards stack critical hit rate. You don't really need to do that. The amount of crit you get from your abilities far exceeds the amount you'll get from statistics. I mean, that's just what it's going to end up playing as. Yeah, you'll get the 10% basically permanently from straight shot. You'll probably be sitting around 18% before that as well. On top of that, you get internal release every minute, so there's another 10%. You basically have a damn near static 30 to 35% critical hit rate, and each individual point of crit is not worth that much. It literally needs to be hundreds upon hundreds, and then you hit diminishing returns before it makes a super noticeable difference. Realistically, offstats aren't that important. I would say that just going for the soldiery gear is an okay thing to do right now, and just upgrading it. But if I'm assuming it's because you're not raiding and doing second coil. You could just wait, to be honest, because if you're not doing second coil, you have no reason to further improve your item level right now. there's a chance that in the next patch, if you do wish to do second coil pugs, that that they may look at your not full 110 gear and give you a hard time. I mean, it's completely common. It happens all the time, as pointless as it is. But realistically, you should be fine with what you're wearing now and just waiting. You could upgrade it if people are giving you a hard time. That is my ultimate belief. Just don't think that the off stats are as important as they are. Your main stat, strength as a Dragoon, is by far the most important stat that you are going to be getting. There you go. I think I'm going to answer these two questions in tandem, so I'm going to read both of these questions because they're right next to each other. For next Monday, do you think they'll add more server-wide fates like Odin or Behemoth in the future? That one I'll answer on its own. I would like them to. I just have a question as to how they would actually... I mean, those two fates cause so much controversy, you know, with, you know, the enemies disappearing, although they've said they fixed that. The rewards being hard to get because of the difficulty of getting gold on the fates, and their overall usefulness outside of making the world feel a little bit more threatening than it is once every couple of days. So yeah, I would like to see it, but only if it's well done. And then there's this statement. I was kind of hoping, more like begging and pleading, for a Sin Fate from Final Fantasy X or something along those lines, rewarded unique Final Fantasy related gear. Before I talk about that, I want to mention this next question from somebody else. So, Mr. Happy, I was wondering how you feel about Square Enix adding a Sephiroth fight to Final Fantasy XIV. He was one of my favorite antagonists in the FF series. I think he could have a decent fight mechanic. Let me just say this. I'm all for Final Fantasy fanfare. I'm all for, you know, Crystal Tower, the way it's fit into this world overall. I'm all for seeing, you know, the same avatars and primals we're used to, you know, Ifrit, Shiva, whatever. I'm all for Magitech mounts. I'm all for all these little Final Fantasy fanfare tidbits, Ultros, Typhoon, Gilgamesh, yeah. But I am tired of them only using stuff from previous Final Fantasy. Like, the last boss of every hard mode dungeon, other than Hullbreaker Isle, has pretty much been a classic Final Fantasy summon from another game. Diabolos is going to be Fenrir next patch, and then we had Siren as well. I want to see more originality. Also, they've pretty much said we'd never get something along the lines of a Sephiroth fight. If a character is deemed dead, they're pretty much not going to appear. I don't even know how that makes sense for the Crystal Tower then, but... I don't want to see, like, Sin suddenly appearing in the world. I don't want to see Sephiroth suddenly appearing in the world. I don't want any of that. I want to see what they can come up with that is original and not borrowed from another Final Fantasy just to make Final Fantasy fans go, oh my god, Sephiroth is in the game. Like, I want to see something original. And that's really what I'm looking for with the expansion, is originality in the story. Sure, you could have names that are used in the old Final Fantasies, like Fafnir or Nidhogg, if you're talking about the dragons. Nidhogg's name having already been dropped. But I don't want to see just constantly like, oh, we need to please the Final Fantasy fans by just adding in stuff from previous Final Fantasy games. Please the MMO genre with your originality. Even as a Final Fantasy fan, I appreciate originality. So, no, I don't really want to see a Sephiroth fight at all. Absolutely not. And I definitely don't want to see a Sin fight either. Sin's effect in Final Fantasy X, their effects on their worlds are extremely severe. Like, those two guys aren't just going to be like, well, I exist here for the sake of being fought. No, they're going to try and destroy everything immediately. So, I absolutely don't want either of those things in this game. New fates, sure, but not Sin or Sephiroth. They're just old Final Fantasy characters just for the sake of doing it. No, no, no. Alright, I am going to answer a few more. I'm just going to look through the last ones, but I definitely see a few more I want to answer this week, especially because I had some kind of long answers before. So this one, hey Happy, this is Leon Blade from Twitch. What's up? I have a question for next week. With the fan festival coming up very soon, I figured now is the perfect time to ask. What is the best way for us to hang out with you during the fan festival? Will you be doing anything else while you are in Vegas? Or are you just spending the minimum time for the fan festival? I'd like to be able to do one of the in-game events with you, maybe Odin, if it's even there. Overall, what is your schedule? The answer is, I don't know, because they haven't given us a schedule, you know, what time all the events are happening, when they'll be available, when's the lore panel, when's the dev panel. We know when the live letter is. Are they doing anything else? Is it just going to be battle challenges the whole time? What about the merchandising store? They've given us so little information about their schedule for us that I have no schedule for myself. I can say I'm not going to be doing anything else in Vegas. I have no interest in going to a casino or going out to a nightclub. No interest in any of that. As for hanging out, I mean, really, if you just see me, just come up, say hello. You know, if you want to, you know, talk for a few minutes, that's fine. But you know, I'm not going to be doing these mass hangouts. You know, I'm partially there for, you know, YouTube to give everyone at home some of the information that I'm going to be getting from there. I'm going for, you know, to have a good time, my own little vacation, because I don't take vacations ever. So, I mean, if you see me, feel free to say hello, but I'm probably not going to be doing like a mass hangout or anything like that, especially because I have no idea what the schedule is. Limit Break Radio, they are the smartest ones. They're doing something Friday before the event starts, and then they're doing something, I don't know, on Sunday or Monday. One of the 2 days, Sunday or Monday. They're basically doing things when we know there's no problems with the schedule because they haven't scheduled anything for those times. So I don't have anything really planned, though. That's the truth. This one's, I'll answer this one. Question, do you think the shield for Paladins will one day outperform Warriors 20% heal? And what tanks do you look forward to having the most in the expansion? Outperform? I mean, they're both pretty even, Paladins and Warriors. Yeah, the heal is nice for the bigger numbers, but they also don't block as often and their parries aren't as strong. They're pretty equal right now, in my opinion. I mean, whenever I see a Paladin pop Bulwark, during certain things in the game, it's just like you might as well take no damage, because the amount of, I mean, yeah, you're only taking like what, depending on your strength, like anywhere between 20 and 26% reduced damage, but on every hit, it's pretty, the shield is already pretty good. I don't think it needs to be any better than it is. It'd be nice if it had an armor value, but that would kind of, the extra mitigation would probably add up to be a little bit too much. What tanks do I hope that gun job they're talking about, because this is a gun. Okay, the gun tank that they're talking about is actually, the gun class they're talking about, excuse me, is a tank. A lot of people are like, but why would you have a gun tank, a ranged tank? You've never seen a movie where you just shoot a guy in the face at point blank? You don't need to stand far away to use a gun, you know? Think about it like a musketeer, sword and gun. I don't know. I would like to see a rune fencer, to be honest, on an unrelated note. But a gun tank would also be pretty cool, especially considering literal tanks have cannons attached to them. Let's have that. A literal tank. Sounds good to me. And this is going to be the last question that I answer. I did all YouTube questions today because it was going to take me too long to get to Twitter and Facebook. So I'm going to do this one. So, two-part question. Do you think a dungeon like Salvage from Final Fantasy XI would work well in 14 with its randomized layouts and objectives? Under that, they said they meant to say Nizul Isle, although I guess I could answer for both. I would like it, but it wouldn't work exactly in the same context. Both Salvage and Nizul Isle wouldn't work in quite the same context. Nizul Isle, for example, wouldn't be nearly as difficult in Final Fantasy XIV. They could make it harder by making the enemies more difficult, but a 30-minute time limit to accomplish some of those objectives is going to be really easy, mainly because Final Fantasy XI had to, you know, you had to kind of hope for good items from time to time, so you didn't need to stop and get MP back or get HP back. Resource management made the 30-minute time limit a lot harder than it actually was, whereas in Final Fantasy XIV, you wouldn't have to worry about that unless they limited resource regeneration in that place, which is a possibility as well. I would like it. I'm not against it. I'm totally up for something that breaks the regular formula for raiding, specifically with Nizul Isle dungeon-wise or Salvage raid-wise, but I don't know that they would ever do something along those lines. And the second question was, sticking with the 11 theme, do you think they would ever do something like the Mog Bonanza? I think the Mog Bonanza is actually a really cool event that 14 can make use of. Of course, they wouldn't be able to do the Mog Bonanza in the Chinese version because there's no gambling allowed. Like the Gold Saucer will never be in the Chinese version of the game due to their cultural differences and their foreign laws. So I think it would be a cool idea, though. The Mog Bonanza is something people could definitely look forward to. And I think with the simplicity of the events they've done so far, that this kind of simplicity adds a little bit more thrill to the simple nature of that lottery system. But anyway, guys, that's going to be the last question that I answer for this video. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. I really enjoy answering these every week, so be sure to keep asking your questions in the comments below. Apologies if I didn't get to your question. I can't get to all of them. That's just how it is. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. I'm sure you're already subscribed if you're asking a question anyway. And until next time, take care.